like to call to order the Parks and Recreation Commission meeting. Please join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's go Rangers.
And Jenny?
Rangers too, they picked up some players. Yeah.
Jackie Balboni. Here. George Kay.
Here.
Srinivasa Chalikanda. Genevieve Corsi.
Here.
James Hennessy.
Present.
Michael Kelly.
Present.
Mitchell Marks.
Here.
William Novak.
Here.
Renee Powell. Miguel Perano. Toby Lewis. And also in attendance, Molly Keys, John Caldwell, and Jenny Tatro.
Thank you. And can I have a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Do we have any public input? Do we have any public input? Do we have any public input? Seeing none, do we have the, yes, sorry, Toby, report from the council liaison.
Hi, thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Being in the budget cycle, what I've heard, and I wasn't officially asked to do this, but just so you know, I think what the council would like to know is with the fees that are raised for events that you have, with like 4th hour and things like that, are you charging enough? Do you raise enough to cover the staff you hired, the staff you have employed covering that, and some increase? So it just, so that'd be good to be able to articulate when it's a budget time presentation, is be able to say that we charge this amount and this amount. The cost factors are in there because the perception is we have enough cost factor to take care of new people or new staff, but we're not covering overhead, you know, from a business point of view. So that would be something that I think the council would like to see in the budget cycle.
We don't have a say. I mean, are you asking the committee something?
I'm reporting to you what I'm liaisoning from the council to you, of things that they would like to see from Parks and Rec.
That has nothing to do with us.
Well, I know that, but I don't have anyone else to tell this to. I know. You guys can ask Molly that for her budget, can't you?
I feel like that will be noted by the department.
Yeah, Toby, the town manager, would direct me any questions that the town council has. I will note that I formally already submitted our budget. We went through it with the town manager. We finalized and wrote out, articulated our commentary for every single portion of our budget as well. It's a pretty lengthy document because we do have all of our separate programs, but I do note that I make it very transparent in our commentary as well as our budget breakdown to show that we do cover our costs as best that we can. Obviously, certain portions of the budget like VMP, VMP is a community asset, it's never going to make money. So we do use some of the other portions of our budget to cover the overhead costs of the pool. But I mean, we do cover our costs with the rates and the fees, or we try our best to, but it's also a delicate balance of remaining affordable for the community as well. Because we'll get to a point, and I'm sure we will in the next 5 years, people, you know, they're not gonna be making any more money per se, and unfortunately our costs are gonna have to go up a little bit every year, and we try our best not to, but you know, it's gonna get to a point parents are gonna be like, well, why is it so expensive? But minimum wage, program costs for all of our materials. it's difficult to balance, but
Sure.
I definitely do articulate it in my commentary that, you know, how we break down our budget and we cover our costs.
Historically speaking, Parks and Rec had always kind of boasted prior to you that we're self-funded and we don't have a budget. So it's changed a bit, so now it's hard to get used to. But thank you for your comments, and be sure to make sure to ask Mike or the town manager for these details.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have nothing else.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Do we have a report from the Board of Education liaison?
On the board budget side of things, the board voted unanimously at our last regular meeting on February 27th in favor of moving the budget on to the town council. Going forward on March 20th at 7 p.m., the council and the Board of Ed at Timothy Edwards Middle School, we have a joint work session so the council can submit their comments and questions about the budget to the central office staff. And then last Monday, they set a date for a public hearing. It's April 1st at 8 p.m. So we look forward to continuing our budget process. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any special reports or task forces? All right. And the report of the Open Space Task Force liaison, George?
Yeah, we didn't have a meeting this month.
Okay. Did you have any information from Walk and Wheelways by chance?
I didn't go to that meeting either.
No worries.
Well, we did get the, yeah, they did come out with from the meeting minutes.
Okay, great. Report of the Parks and Recreation Director.
I'll highlight Walk and Wheelways tonight as well. But good evening, everyone. So to start off with Walk and Wheelways, so they always meet now the second Wednesday of every month. They've shifted around a little bit to accommodate these meetings so I can attend both. But they are working with myself and Kevin Grindle from Barton and Longice to continue to move forward with phase 1 of the Crosstown Trails. We have our authorization letters to do wetlands permitting, and the testing over on the property is for phase 1A. So the next step is we are really trying to work on getting in our application to inland wetlands and finalizing. We have to go through Eversource to be able to use it right away, which we've already had those conversations, but you have to file a formal application. You have to get signatures from all sorts of levels. So we're in the process of navigating that piece. But we're hopeful that once we go through that portion with Eversource and the permitting process with inland wetlands, and we'll then go to P&Z and we'll go out to bid for construction of phase 1. Also meeting with the Walk and Wheelways to kind of go over how we're going to go over community input sessions. So we're going to be doing some of that for the Crosstown Trails because community input is key, especially since we have abutters with Plum Ridge and a few other condo associations. So we want to kind of make sure that all of them are aware of the plans and we have some buy-in from the community and just that education portion as well. Outside of that, they are pretty busy, especially once it hits the spring and summer, since we do a lot of the weekly bike rides. They started the Teen Cycle Club last year, which is super awesome. The Teen Cycle Club kicks off, it's already March, so it kicks off in like a month, which is super cool. We're excited to have them back for their second season. They are hosting like the first year of a bike safety and maintenance workshop. We're gonna do it in a fair kind of style. We're doing that at Orchard Hill on Saturday, March 16th. So if anyone is interested in getting some bike education as well as learning how to do maintenance on your bicycle, it's a really super neat opportunity. It'll be at 9 a.m. More information in our brochure, which I will mention in a moment. And Walk and Wheelways also will have like our Earth Day cleanup and the 4th grade bike program. So they are gearing up and trying to figure out and organize all their volunteer opportunities currently and making sure that they have enough coverage between all of the events. Since they are all volunteer based, they really are trying to expand who joins the club so that way they can have more opportunities for volunteers to join them for the fourth grade bike program and their bike rides, because they are super passionate and they want to be able to offer more, but we do need some more help in order for that to be sustained. So if anyone knows of anyone who is passionate about biking, please reach out to us and we would gladly, chat with them and have that conversation. It's not a huge time commitment, even if it's only like 1 hour a month. It's better than nothing, so. But I will plan on reporting about them as well next month. In terms of recreation, so spring is around the corner. We can tell by the rainy weather and the 60-degree/40-degree days, right? But we are still wrapping up basketball. So we have basketball for majority of our kids up until the weekend of the 23rd, 24th. So they're wrapping up their final season games around this weekend, and then we go into playoffs. So it's a super long program. It's awesome. It's winding down. Kids are getting ready for the excitement of the championships and then to jump right into their spring sports. As for our Mighty Mites and More Mighty Mites, they ended on March 2nd. So for like Mighty Mites, we had 160 kids in that program, and then More Mighty Mites, we had 109 kids. So they went through all of their last programming this past weekend, and then Challenger basketball also concluded. And then we do have an exciting thing that we are expanding our youth wrestling. We don't talk too often about youth wrestling, but we've started working with this group, I believe 2 years ago now, and they've really grown in popularity for this wrestling program, and they had 21 boys and girls competing in this, and they asked if we could expand the programming, and there was space at the high school to do that in the spring, so we're able to offer it for those individuals in the spring, which is a nice opportunity for people to continue the sport. Other news in the park and rec world, you guys probably all saw your mailboxes with the brochures, the spring and summer brochures. We're excited to announce that they have come out. They are hopefully in everyone's mailboxes this week or by early next week if you have not received them yet. And if you don't receive them, they are on our website and they are in our office, and we will gladly give you a copy. This year, I mentioned last meeting, we're having resident camp registration earlier than we typically do. We took feedback from families who had noted that registration is overwhelming and it's also a little bit later than some other communities. So we are now doing it on Wednesday, March 27th, and it's just going to be camps on that date. So hopefully that'll help alleviate a little bit of that stress of trying to get into camp and the sports programs and swim lessons, and they can focus on what they need to get in. And as always, we are ready to go in the office and ready to assist, whether it's in person, online, on the phone. It'll be great. And then the remainder of our spring and summer programs for residents are on Wednesday, April 3rd. So that's a lot of our like swim lessons, sport programs, things of that nature, track club. And we did already open our pool pass sales. So we have our family pool pass sale going on now through April 2nd. So if families sign up now, they get $10 off their pool pass. So we are running that promotion right now, and we're really trying to push the pool because it's a great spot to be in the summer. And then, let's see, some other great things. We did have a family game night. I'm not sure that I mentioned that last time, but I wanted to give a shout out to our rec supervisor, Nate, for hosting the Minute to Win It style game night. It was the first year we've done it in conjunction with the Teen Center, and they had 16 participants, so it was super nice, unique opportunity, and I thank Nate for hosting that. And then coming up, we do have the egg hunt. So we're hosting our annual egg hunt on March 29th from 9 to 12 at the high school turf fields. We were trying to move locations this year, but we ended up moving it back to the turf field just for some logistic reasons. And we're excited to continue to offer this event for the community, and we hope that it'll be a beautiful day with a nice turnout. So if anyone is interested, I know John's ready to go for the egg hunt. And then lastly, and then I'll hand it over to John, but we did have the resolution passed from the town council to give us funds for a study. So the PBC hosted a special meeting yesterday. Genevieve attended it with me to meet with Tom, I'm going to say his last name wrong, Akari from QA&M, who will be conducting the facilities conditions assessment and conceptual design for modifying the existing facility. So it was just an introduction meeting, kind of going over the basics of his scope and his timeline. It's around a 3-month timeline for this whole exercise, and then hopefully we'll kind of get a baseline of what our facility is at currently, what the conditions are, the base pricing to make sure that we have what we need to function safely and effectively. And then they're also going to have other additions basically to fit our program into the building, to turn it into a full rec center. So these additions obviously have costs with them, so they're gonna break it all down. And we are super excited that he's going to be doing a community input session. So he will be doing that as well throughout his study, so we'll have the opportunity. We're gonna truly highlight it through Parks and Rec, and hopefully at the next meeting, once we get a date of when that's gonna be, so we can actually push people to come and attend, and just chat and tell us what they want, but also see what's going on and hopefully get some traction. But yes, that's all I have, and then I will pass it on to John.
Yeah, I do. For that meeting, are they gonna give you a diagram to make that a full rec center? Like pool, I mean, I'm talking a rec center, not just the building.
Yes, so they are going to be doing a conceptual design. I think they offered I think you said 3 options of a conceptual design.
Yep.
Basically, bare bones, and then the additions of the gymnasium, the indoor pool, things of that nature.
Yeah, it sounded like they would kind of provide kind of a menu of potential add-ons at different levels, and whether that's a pool or a gym or different other types of additions. So I think it'll be a good exercise in seeing
Well, it's a
what
good
we
start.
can do. Absolutely, oh, yeah.
But does that, I mean, whatever happened to the building committee that they're gonna restart, is that done?
Yeah, that was dissolved last spring, I want to say, by the time.
No, but remember in the fall, they were trying to get people we were gonna meet again with,
Oh, yes, the PBC, yeah.
this is gonna be part of, or that?
So the PBC is running it, but there's not an official subcommittee of the PBC. I believe the whole PBC is going to be running these special meetings. Once we know the dates of the special meetings, I am certainly going to invite everyone from the commission. I invited Genevieve literally less than 24 hours before it, because it was something, they got the funds on a Thursday night, Friday, and we got an email, and we were like, let's just make a meeting happen. But going forward, I'm going to make sure that the option is there for anyone to attend.
It was very interesting, so I would definitely encourage everyone to attend if you can. Were there any other questions for Molly before we move on to John's report?
I don't know if this is the time to discuss it, but I thought I read something about the Wapping Fair and the J.C.'s backing out.
I was like, oh, I don't know if I wrote that. Yes, so the J.C.'s have backed out of running the Wapping Fair. There is a new 501c3 that has been formed called the Friends of the Wapping Fair. John, Dave, and I have a meeting with them next week to discuss logistics. Where are they at? What support do they need? What can we do from a town side? What can we not do? We're excited to hear their thoughts. They did meet with the J.C.'s to get prior history on the event and what they typically do with the timeline. So we kind of just want to see what's going to happen. We don't want them to be overwhelmed and not set up for success. So, but people have stepped up to run it.
Any other questions for Molly?
I do have a question. I saw in the legislature there's a bill about the John Mitchell Fairgrounds and improvements. Do you know what improvements will be made as part of that bill?
I didn't know if it's passed yet.
Oh,
I was like, I don't, but yeah, so, what would be done with that funding is essentially the water, electricity, that infrastructure, as well as, really just turning it into a functioning rental space, event space in town. We did ask for some capital funding to cover, a portion of the pavilion, because Rotary had offered to potentially donate the other half of the pavilion funding through their fundraiser. So if we get the funds elsewhere, then I'm not sure, you know, it might cover all of it, which would be fantastic.
Just to clarify, is that just a bill to earmark funds from the state budget?
I think so. I mean, there was an article about it. It hasn't been
Okay.
passed.
Okay, sounds cool. John?
Good evening, everyone. Parks crew's been busy as always. As you know, the athletic fields remain closed still. The high school is going to start about March 14th with most of their sports. We're hoping the weather starts to cooperate just a little bit for us because we got a lot of ball field work to do and a lot of athletic fields to get ready. Everybody is chomping at the bit. We had the nice weekend last weekend, and the park was absolutely packed. The crew's been working on tons of equipment. We have two parks, excuse me, two very talented parks people that do a lot of our mechanic work. They've serviced over 85 pieces of equipment. That's Mark and Brian. And that includes our weed whackers, our leaf blowers, sod cutters, and all kinds of other equipment, including the big zero-turn mowers. So they've been working hard on that. The other parts of the crew have been working in the parks and the open space, and they focus through the winter, weather permitting, to prune trees and work in all the parks. One of the areas that we've been working in is the Route 5 entrance over by South Windsor and East Hartford. We've done a lot of clearing over there. The parks crew is going to start taking that over. We had a contractor that did that before, but budgetary constraints isn't going to allow us to have that contractor, so we're going to take on a little bit more work over there with clearing some overgrowth brushes and some heavy vegetation along the railroad tracks there. The crew's also been working at Major Michael Donnelly. We had a lot of bridges that have collapsed and failed in there over the years. One of the bridges, we actually removed a portion of it. We built it up a little bit higher, so the bridge is no longer required. But the crew put down some fabric underneath, a geotextile type fabric, some stone, and then the bridges on top of that. They've replaced quite a large section of bridges over there. They're doing a great job. We also have found that we use corrugated pipe to keep the bridges afloat, and they seems to hold up very well for the bridges. One of the other projects is we built a shed a long time ago. It was to house a large freezer because it was a time when if certain animals met their demise, we would have to freeze them and save them for a certain period of time until the state would check them out. And we stopped using it probably 10 years ago. It's been sitting on the hill, and we've gifted it to Molly in the rec center. So the crew took the shed apart, rebuilt the entire shed. The freezer's not in it anymore. But they rebuilt the entire shed. We did it all in-house. We saved a considerable amount of money doing that, and now it's used as a small storage facility over at Recreation. The crew also, over at Company 2, Beelzebub and Foster, the neighbor took down a large amount of pine trees that were there, and with that, it exposed their dumpster over there, and it was kind of an eyesore. The crew just finished putting a fence around that to enclose it, so it's much more aesthetically pleasing. We've also been working, they just cleaned up portions of Plum Gully Brook today over by the high school that was kind of clogged up. We've been checking out some of the other things that have to get ready. One of them is Wapping tennis courts. They're in pretty rough shape. We have a quote right now to do some emergency repairs, about $17,000, and that doesn't include any repairs to TE, which are in probably just as bad, if not worse shape. We're hoping that we're going to have a little extra money with the contractor to do some repairs at TE also. The crew is over there today to say, once again, a contractor usually says, look, we have to pressure wash the courts. There's a lot of shade on courts 5 and 6, which are closest to the wood line, furthest away from Ayers Road. So they spent the day over there today with pressure washers and cleaners and brooms, and we've gotten the mold off of probably half of courts 5 and 6, but it's quite a project. They're gonna continue to work on that, and hopefully we get that cleaned up. That'll save us some money with the contractor that's gonna make the repairs. We also have interviews this next week coming up for our last maintainer, for our one opening that we have right now for maintainer ones. Hopefully we get a good candidate out of that. We have some good prospects in the works. We usually allow 1 or 2 of the maintainers to sit on that because they have to work with the candidate, and then one of us will sit on it also. So we try and get a good balance between crew and everything. So, you know, part of the crew getting along and jiving is very important too. And again, I know I say it all the time, and I sound like a broken record, but I have a crew of 11 right now, and we've had 11 for quite some time. 12 is our normal number, but they are a phenomenal group of guys, and they do a great job. Now, I can say guys because they're all guys, all right, so. But with that, I think that's about it. We do have, you talk about the Scantic property. We do have a walkthrough with Scantic. We had a grant for a study there for some work down by the river. Hopefully it'll see what it'll take to clean the river up down to Route 5 and down to Ferry Lane. George is gonna be involved with us on that with the walkthrough. The company that we're dealing with is also doing the Crosstown Trail with Kevin Grindell, and he has another associate that is new to us but seems very passionate about it. The park itself is basically an open field right now with a parking lot. The river, George has been down it more than once, is gonna be quite a challenge. Hopefully we can get something done, get something on paper, get some good ideas there for that. But I think that wraps it up for the Parks crew.
Thank you. Is there any questions for John?
That's Scantic River, that's the one that goes through East Windsor and you kind of shoot over to get into South Windsor? Okay.
Yeah, the park is basically, I'll call it East Windsor / East Windsor, South Windsor / East Windsor. I don't know if you know where South Windsor Auto Parts is off of Scantic Road. Actually, if you go down that street straight and you go straight ahead, it's closed right now, it's gated off. We just added a new gate to it because the parks aren't maintained in the winter. And it's one of those parks that is kind of out of sight, out of mind right now. So we figured it best to gate it and we don't get some, we'll call them unwanted people down there. So we're gonna look at that. Like I said, we have the meeting, but it's a nice little place, but we gotta do a little bit more with it. Like a boat launch, like a kayak or canoe launch would be fantastic down there.
That really would be something we don't have, right? You'd
Right.
be getting a little kayak, little running water through there,
Yeah,
tubing
correct.
or something of that nature, which we don't have access anywhere in the town, right?
Correct, and
That'd be
our
great.
goal, John and I, 2 years ago at this point, almost 3 years ago, when we got the land, we thought it was a fantastic spot to make it an accessible boat launch. So that way, you know, it's gonna be a kayak boat launch, but it would also be accessible for those who have mobility issues or have adaptive equipment. So it would be super neat, and it would goes along as well with our inclusion programming. So hopefully we could expand and do some adventure programming for them as well. So it's a great asset to the town, and also we'd be able to add to the portfolio of the programs.
And we're equipped to clear that out and the brush and.
We're gonna find out.
Okay.
You know, yeah, it's not so much that area, the river itself. I did it probably with Dave, probably 7, 8 years ago. We had report probably 50 times. There's trees that are 4 or 5 feet around in there, so it's gonna be a project. I mean, it took us half a day to get 4 miles. So they're gonna have to, I don't know how they do it, if they just cut them and let them fall and go to the side. All you need is a kayak path. You're not gonna get a boat in there.
Well, I think the company that's gonna look into it is gonna look at different ways to do it, you know, give us some options, and they're gonna actually try and get down the entire river. So whether they do it with drones, whether they do it, you know, on foot, but that's what they're going to look at to do.
Yeah, they've done similar projects.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I think the biggest issue they're gonna have, I mean, you can clear that, every year you're gonna get floods and you're gonna get trees in there. So it's gonna be a continual parks cleanup.
Well, we were thinking like volunteers like George.
Actually, the river,
Blue Way.
East Windsor's got that club that they get every spring, they'll get in there for cleanup, they get in there after storms. So if we can piggyback with them at some point and keep it going all the way down to the Connecticut River, that'd be great.
Yeah, I was wondering, it's right on the border there. Is there a way to work with East Windsor Town to double up the effort?
The volunteers might help us with it, but I think, like George was saying, I think it's gonna be like a Parks volunteer type of cooperation.
I don't think the
thing.
town of East Windsor
I don't
does
think they are.
anything.
No.
East Windsor itself doesn't do it, this river group, they
Right.
do it every year, it's
Okay.
all volunteers.
All right. Once it's cleaned up, East Windsor's going to use it.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Well, anybody can use it.
Any other questions for John? I just had a quick question. Someone had asked me about the pavilion at the fairgrounds that you've mentioned. Can you just maybe describe what exactly you mean by a pavilion?
Yeah, the company that we're dealing with right now that we have plans with is Barnyard, actually. So it's gonna be a large wooden structure. I believe it's 40 by 80. It's gonna be open air. You know, there's things that we can add on to it as we go along. They've been great to deal with. It's the structure itself. We'll probably hire another company to do the concrete work underneath it. But, you know, so far, things seem to be okay. Rotarians are very excited about it. We can't thank them enough for what they've done for the town for years and years and years, forever. I mean, we wouldn't have a lot of things that we have right now if it weren't for them.
So it's really just kind of for like the shade? There's not like a kitchen, bathroom,
Not at
anything?
this time, there is not, but, you know, that's something, we have no utilities right now, so
Right.
we figured we'll start with a large structure. That way we don't have to deal with tents and things like that like we do. It'll help the Wapping Fair. But if we do get an infrastructure in there, that's when we'll start to look at other things like that, like kitchens and bathrooms, you know, laboratories, things like that.
If we get the additional funding that is proposed, then we'd be able to do the utilities.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you. All right. Any other discussion topics? And other business, so I had brought up the project of starting to look at the master plan. I expect that this is going to be an ongoing project. I had suggested if anyone had a chance to start looking at that first section. I will be the first to admit that I was not able to give it quite as much time as I had hoped this past month, but I did want to open the floor to see if anyone else had gone through, seen anything interesting, anything they want to discuss. And then, like I said, I think this is going to be an ongoing project. Any comments, discussion, thoughts, dreams, prayers, wishes, questions, anything? All right, so for the first section, the first section, it's mostly like demographical information. That is information that your department can update? Okay. I think for the most part, a lot of this is not going to really change in this section. Molly and John, is there anything in this first section that you guys can think of that you want us to really take another look at?
I do like to reference NRPA quite a bit. And as you can see, Ray and the commission had worked off of some of the NRPA studies as well in the past. But when it comes down to some of the demographic sections and other introductions, NRPA puts out studies almost every single year on park use, recreation programs, the impact of access to parks, things like that. Just various studies that I believe that we could really kind of put in almost every year, every other year. We could probably update it, just so that we can see where we're at compared to the national level. They are a fantastic resource, so I do want to note that I'm going to look at updating those portions. And it really goes down to the economic development portion of it, the health and wellness, and just kind of like the access to parks. And then it said like other ways that we lead the way. So it's just kind of looking at our other communities that we've been basing off of and make sure that, what are we still doing different? What are we, how are we comparing to those neighbors? So we definitely just want to look at that. We do that a little bit internally, but I do think, just posing that back to my staff would be a nice exercise for them as well.
Okay. I was also wondering, how are we able, and I know we've kind of talked about this in multiple settings, how are we able to get the results of the various surveys, gosh, I'm blanking. Well, the surveys that we've already done, over the past year or two, I think there's been a couple. Can we, get results from those?
Like from are you talking about like the ones that we put in internally, or are we talking about?
It was the survey about
Yeah, but the recent ones, like in the past year,
Like the farmers market ones and whatever?
the farmer's market, what was the big one the town just did?
You're talking about the town levels of POCD
Yeah,
strategic.
sorry.
Okay, yes, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, because I was
Yep,
just
sorry.
because
I'm like,
we
all
do a
right,
lot
I'm
we do
blanking,
surveys
you're
for all of our
blanking.
programs, and I'm like, you guys are welcome to look at anything that we have, but we kind of just keep those in like our files. If anyone wants to see like any of our internal surveys, you're more than welcome to call us and be like, hey, can I see some of this? But as far as the town, the POCD, and the strategic planning, I'll just reach out to whatever department head is associated with that and just ask for a copy. I think Michelle is pretty much in charge of all of that, so I can just ask her for a copy and then I can distribute it to everyone. But
that would
also
be
we'd figure out how to incorporate those recreation-specific portions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, no, I think that would be helpful. Bill, you had your light on?
Pardon?
Did you have?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay, just checking. Okay, yeah, I think having the results from whatever surveys we can, and that would help with future discussions, and then the demographic information. Do we want to, I guess if the first section you said there's not that much that really needs to be updated, we can look at the second section. And it looks like this is mostly inventory, maps, and such. So I guess, do we want to take a look at this second section over the next month and then come back and see if anyone sees any changes, any need for updates and whatnot?
It makes perfect sense to me, given the fact that you've got the assessment going on for the building modifications at the same time. It would make sense to look at all the other property that sort of is under the control of the commission and try to marry the opportunities and the needs that we have between what facilities we already have and what we're looking at. So that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Right, yeah.
Molly, I have a question. That land where the Boy Scout, is that the town owns that now? Is that gonna be like a park? It's gonna go in there? Okay, that's all I want.
And I think, do we have updated imaging of the parks? I think I had asked you maybe about the fairgrounds or something. I didn't know if that was something that was done on a regular basis or. Ooh.
I was laughing. That was worse than the phone. We don't have consistent updated images of all the parks. We have a staff member who does drone footage.
Okay.
And we have her go out and do drone footage when she has the capacity to. It's not necessarily the main portion of her job, so it's more so of a passion / we really want to stay up to date with our marketing.
Okay.
But when it comes to this, then we will need to have updates for every single portion. So we will have to intentionally go out there. But she is the only one that has the drone certification to fly, so none of us. So it'll be a process, but we can definitely get it done to make sure that we are up to date. Because I believe there are a few properties that we don't have in here as well that'll need some footage.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good, because I mean, I just opened it up to like the skate park, and I know that has been updated, so I think that's helpful to know. Any other thoughts initially?
I don't have it in front of me. Are the community gardens in there as well?
I feel like they.
How many of those do we have? Two?
Yeah, we currently have two community gardens. One's off of Avery Street and one is off of Deming.
Right.
One has I believe it's 60 gardens in it, the other one has 72. I think.
Are those, what's the present condition of those? Are they open?
They're
for-
fantastic.
I know.
I will
say that.
note that Whole Foods actually gave us a donation for enhancing our gardens as well this
So
year.
you're taking applications for,
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
sorry. Yep, so the gardens did open, so that is something I didn't mention, that the gardens are back open. But it's already full.
already
like,
full for the spring?
Jenny, are they full? Are they full?
So if you want to be on the wait list, you can be on the wait list.
Plenty of fresh vegetables in town, I guess.
That's great, and the gardens are in
Are they?
the
Thank you.
book, yeah, so, but I'm guessing those have grown since this past update. All right, sounds good. Any other thoughts, questions, comments? All right. Is there anything else? All right, I guess motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.